Hey friends, I bought a truck. Let me tell you how that went. I was searching online for a while just to get a feel for what prices I would be paying and the types of trucks or models that I could buy. Because I felt like if I kept looking, there'd be a pattern that I could identify, and then I could just hone in on specific models of, say, parts, locations they've been used in Australia, and yeah, so that's the kind of knowledge and patterns I was trying to identify. I ended up learning about Hino trucks and that they've been around for a while, as well as Scania and Isuzu. So those were the three models that I was going to focus on while I was searching for the truck that I was going to buy. Another thing I found while going through that process was that trucks in the country were a little bit more accessible. And what I mean by that is I was able to talk to people the owners, the sellers of these trucks, in a more sincere way. I'm guessing because it's been on the farm for a while, is there no indication of when it was last roadworthy or something like that?
No, I couldn't tell you that, mate, sorry.
Which means that I could judge them and their honesty about the vehicles they were selling versus, some people in the city. Which, I mean, people in the city are a little less friendly.
Yo, I'm walking!
The other thing about talking to country folk, they seem to have a lot of knowledge of the gear that they use. They just know what it's like to have something they can rely on. And yeah, so that was kind of like I judged people based on how they would talk to me and how forthcoming they were with the information. And based on what they were selling and kind of what they were saying, I made a judgment call on that sort of thing. So I ended up finding a Hino truck from the 80s. When I first came across the advert, I was pretty skeptical. It didn't really have much on the advert. It just said a 1980s Hino with a bogie axle and a tray. Not much to go on there. The truck was listed for $8,000, and I was just like, okay, that's a very low price. Why? Why is it so low? I'd asked some questions, he had sent some photos. So we did that for maybe a day or two, and then I was like, okay, it's time to chat to this fella. We'll call him Matt. And yeah, so the conversation really well. I actually recorded it, and I'm going to share some of that with you.
There's two fuel filters on the side next to the batteries.
Yeah.
We change them, and then there's an oil filter which you can get to lifting up the cabins. Yeah, it's quite easy. You don't need a pit or anything. Some trucks are pretty hard everything's underneath.
So now I've chatted with Matt, and I've got a bit of confidence. I've got a bit of a gauge of who he is and why he's selling. And okay, the truck starts to make a little bit of sense now. Reasons why it makes sense, maybe I'll just do that in a voiceover because I'm not going to be able to list them off now. What surprised me was this truck had container pins, something I hadn't seen in the older trucks that I was looking at. The truck has two wheels on the back, which means there's more surface area. So the weight of everything on the back, like the container and all the objects in the container, are distributed more evenly into the ground as the truck sits over time. It came in way below my budget of about $17,000, especially after seeing the same model for $20,000 on another website. Because of its low price, I'd be more ready to spend money on parts and try and fix it myself, which is another big plus for me because I wanted to learn how these old vehicles and diesel vehicles in general worked. Other reasons, Hino is already a well-established and tested brand. The tray isn't longer than it needs to be, so that would make it easier to park in the city. There's ample space under the tray for so much storage, as well as inside the cab behind the seats. And I understand the truck has plenty of power for towing my hatchback behind it when I move every year or so. Lastly, the truck is classified as a historic vehicle here in Australia, which means I'd be paying $150 instead of $900 each year for registration. Yeah, so these are the reasons why I thought it would be good pursuing this truck. And so I don't know anything about trucks, still learning. So what I did is I just reached out to a whole bunch of people in my network, friends and family, if they knew a diesel mechanic, if they knew someone I could just ask questions about these commercial trucks. I didn't find anyone. Diesel mechanics are a very rare breed, apparently. I got lucky. One of my clients, Stephen, I will also play his audio.
Soot comes out of it when you run a diesel, but if you get a blue colour or a different colour coming out off the exhaust, it can indicate that the engine's on its way out.
He was very helpful and gave me a lot of confidence talking to him because he explained the process of what it was like to buy a commercial truck. to test them, what things to look for, you know, how to think about their interactions. And he's very knowledgeable and he had my best interests in mind. So that was lovely. Okay, now I've got that confidence, that understanding. I've listed a whole bunch of questions out. I've written them, they're in front of me, and I call up Matt to have that next chat. Clutch was replaced, I think you said, when you got it. That would have been like 2-3 years ago?
I only did the clutch last year.
Oh, nice.
Clutch is fine. I got a proper diesel mechanic into the line to do it.
How often did you do the service on it?
You probably don't have to do a service on a truck for every 20,000 k's, and I would have done about 5 since I've had it. So
yeah, nice. How's the tread looking? How much travel have I got till I need to replace the tires?
I think they're pretty good. There was pictures of them on the internet. But
that was good. That was very productive, and I got a lot from that conversation, and that gave me that next step of confidence to maybe pursue. This could be the truck for me. The other thing that Matt said is that he would help me with shipping. He says that he has to move hay bales sometimes from his farm. You know, I gave the seller trust. I didn't know who Matt was. You know, I'd only talked to him on the phone twice. So I was a bit skeptical, you know. In my mind, it's like I could see a lot of things where a scam artist could really scam you in this way. I ended up calling the diesel mechanic to see if he could go out there and have a look for me. He was happy to do so. He was very busy at the time, and he said he would do it at the end of the week. And he kind of remembered the truck. He kind of remembered the, you know, Matt and the interaction. So that was cool, and that gave me a little bit more confidence again. So come around to the end of the week, you know, I've been messaging Matt. He's been sending me videos of the truck, you know, of it running, of the engine, photos of different parts of the truck, you know, things that are roadworthy as well, like lights, windscreen wipers. So you got the roadworthy stuff, which is the small stuff that needs to be tested and make sure that people can see on the road. And then there's the engine, you know, is it gonna serve its purpose and be a reliable vehicle? Kind of got to the end of the week. Hey, Rob, there's another guy interested. He's actually much closer to me. It's about maybe an hour or two away, another farmer, and he wants to, you know, he's ready to buy the truck without even looking at it. I was like, bollocks. I really need to move on this, because from the conversations that I was having with Matt, the truck seemed perfect. It seemed like a really good truck. More than what I actually had realized I was looking for. I had to make a call. I had to make a judgment call. You know, Matt had come back with a good quote for freighting the vehicle down. He had offered to take $1,000 off the price to move it down to Melbourne, which again made me a bit skeptical. I mean, $1,000 off the price, really? That's so generous. So he must have had a bit of trouble selling it before. I realized that when I found the post for this Hino truck, it had actually been a second post. So maybe he knocked the price down, and because he's in the middle of butt-ass nowhere, he couldn't sell it. He was having trouble selling it, so, you know, those things were going through my mind. Anyway, that's the offer. It's $7,000 for this truck. It's got all these features. It's in really good nick. It's much lower than what I was expecting to pay. There's a diesel mechanic who's already looked at it and worked on it and changed, you know, the clutch. I've spoken to that diesel mechanic. I'd spoken to him twice at this point, and I'd spoken to people who I trusted their opinion on how to judge and how to buy a commercial truck. I trusted myself as well. Like, I'd done a bit of research. I had jumped on YouTube and learnt as much as I could about people who were doing diesel trucks, who were diesel mechanics, explaining how they work. I had to decide if I was going to buy a vehicle I hadn't seen. I was going to decide if I was going to buy a vehicle from someone I hadn't met. Yeah, and it felt right. It felt right. So I think I'm about to buy my first heavy piece of machinery. So the flatbed for the tiny house has been found. It's been located, and I need to try and get it back to Melbourne. I get a call from Matt, and he's like, mate, are you ready? Like, the guy wants to come and pick it up. The freighting's ready, because we had already priced and quoted the freight. You know, do you want to do this? Are you ready to do this? And man, did I am but I bought the truck. So this is the button that's going to confirm me sending $7,500 to someone. See here?
$7,500?
So that's $7,500 there. Yeah?
That's $7,700.
I bought a vehicle I hadn't seen before. you know, I was very apprehensive about it, but you know, there's one thing that stuck in my mind after chatting with the mechanic and also hearing this from 3 friends is that you don't 100% know what you're buying all the time. I did it, and I don't know if it's good. It's coming tomorrow. It's being delivered. I guess I'll have to make a video on whether, you know, that decision that I made is going to be, well, is a good one, was a good one. But it has happened, and I'm very excited about it. So yeah, that's the quick story, or maybe not so quick. I haven't introduced who I am. My name's Rob Cott. I'm a designer building my first tiny home, and this is probably, I think, this is episode 8. No, that's not right. This is episode 7.